The Nintendo Switch 2 is upon us, and honestly, I'm not that excited about it. This was a very interesting direct for me. The Switch 2 in general, I think, is a very interesting console. Nintendo, I thought, had a lot actually working against them. Yes, people have been begging for an update to that original Switch hardware, but on top of that, to me, the big issue was that the Switch as a concept is no longer new. When the original Switch came out, it was revolutionary. We had never seen a handheld console quite like the Switch. I think it definitely still is the easiest to switch between TV and handheld, but with the advent of the Steam Deck and many other handheld gaming machines, the whole gimmick of the Switch is no longer as unique as it was back in 2017 when it first came out. The big thing I was looking for when it came to the Switch 2 was actually the first-party games. I don't really care if I can play Cyberpunk on my Switch because I have it on my Steam Deck, I have it on the PC. I just wanted to contextualize where I was coming from when I sat down to watch the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. They already showed the console off with that trailer, making it clear that it's essentially the same console. There's not much new here. They started out with Mario Kart World, which, yeah, looks good. It's a Mario Kart game. To me, that's not a system seller. It's a game that you will definitely buy if you get a Switch, but I don't know that I'm buying a Switch to play Mario Kart. Yes, the open world looks fun. The larger number of racers is definitely going to mix things up a bit. I really like the idea of the elimination race, but it's still just Mario Kart. These aren't really games I play by myself. You mostly need friends for Mario Kart. So while I get why they'd want to lead with it, it again isn't really a game to me that sells the console. The next big thing they wanted to talk about was voice chat, which was insane to me. This is something that has been in consoles since the Xbox 360, and Nintendo wasted like 10 minutes of their direct telling you that you could use voice chat. And honestly, their implementation is not appealing. If I am required to bring up that Discord-looking bottom third of the screen to talk to people, I'm not going to do it. You want voice chat to be as unobtrusive as possible? Now, maybe they showed it just to show it off, and you can actually not have it display once the console comes out, but the way they showed it really wasn't that great. The next big part of the Direct was the sheer number of third-party games hitting the console on day one. Now, this is cool, but it's also not to me. A lot of these games have already released, they exist, they're just also coming to the Switch. I think at this point it's pretty clear that third parties like the Switch. There's no reason to believe that the Switch 2 isn't going to be popular, so of course these games are coming over. And again, this gets back to the problem with the Switch isn't new anymore. Steam Decks exist, the ROG Ally, whatever else, all those handheld computers. So the idea of playing Elden Ring on the go is maybe appealing to some people, but to me, who has a Steam Deck and has Elden Ring on Steam, has Cyberpunk on Steam, it's not really that cool. I can see why it did a lot for others, though, but I think it really highlights the different position that Nintendo is in when it comes to the Switch 2 versus the Switch 1. When you get outside of that core demographic of people who buy Nintendo consoles, PC gaming has really proliferated in the last 8 years, and many more people have a PC and play games on it than did 8 years ago. So I'm wondering if that is going to hurt Nintendo in the long run, considering they seem to focus so much on it in this Direct. The one third-party game that is exciting is the Duskbloods, essentially Bloodborne 2. Like, that's super exciting, but again, that's not coming out until 2026 at the earliest. And then they announced more info on it, and it's this PvPvE game. So I'm not even sure that I'm excited about it. And then most likely it will probably also come out on PC. I think this gets back to really the core issue I have, not just with the Switch 2, but with consoles in general. It seems like all games ultimately end up on PC at some point or another, and it just feels like consoles are becoming obsolete in the modern day. The Welcome Center. This was the first sort of sign that Nintendo is maybe getting a little too full of themselves. They seem to go through this with their console. The Wii was a smash hit. Then what do? They make the Wii U, a console that for the most part did not perform well. And I think you can call that hubris. They think, oh, everybody buys it, we're the most popular, we're on top, and they kind of coast through and crash and burn. This was kind of the first hint. The bigger hint is the price, not just of the console, but of the games. But the fact that this Welcome Center is a paid game is not something that's included on the device is mind-boggling to me. Even if they charge $1, it's not a question of how much it costs. It's the sheer fact that they want you to pay for it, especially when you think of the cost of the system. $450. They want $450 from you, and they can't toss in a $10 tech demo. That's insulting. The next big announcement they had was the GameCube games for the Nintendo Switch Online. Again, this is kind of a double-edged sword to me. It's cool, but that shouldn't be a selling point of the system. Yes, you can play GameCube games now. Is that really worth spending $500 on a console to play a small handful of GameCube games? It's a nice perk. It's a nice thing to have if I had a Switch 2, but I'm not going to buy a Switch 2 to play GameCube games. With everything really that happened in this Direct, that was the feeling I got. Oh, that would be cool if I had a Switch 2, but I'm not going to buy a Switch 2 to get it. Really, the only thing that got me super excited was Donkey Kong Bananza, and this game looks like a lot of fun. The world being so destructible and how that might play in a 3D Donkey Kong kind of game, I'm really excited about. This is one of the games that would make me consider buying a Switch, but here's the last problem. That is the only game that they showed that is only available on the Switch 2 that is coming out, that I would want to buy a Switch 2 to play. Yes, Metroid Prime 4 probably looks a lot better, plays a lot better, but you can play that on the Switch 1. All those other games they just announced in the Direct the week before the Switch 2 Direct, those are all coming to the Switch 1. They did also tease Kirby Air Riders, which is incredible. That's a game I never thought we'd ever get a sequel to, but why do I need to buy a Switch 2 right now when the only game I'll be able to play is Donkey Kong, especially if they want me to spend $70 now on games? Overall, I do think there was a lot of cool and good things shown in the Direct, but none of it was enough to get me from that's cool to I have to have this. And then of course they announced the price, $450 for a console, $500 if you want it with Mario Kart. And the bigger problem that they're going to ask you $80 for some of these games. This again I think just points to this fact that Nintendo thinks they've got the market cornered, that people are going to just buy it, and maybe that's true. But to me, with all the other hardware around, it doesn't make sense. If you have any size of a Steam library, you should buy a Steam Deck before you buy a Switch 2. And I know that's not going to affect the 10-year-old kids, or they're going to just ask mom and dad for a Switch 2. I get that. The console's probably going to sell really well. I'm not naive enough to think that it's not going to sell well. But I do think that Nintendo is starting down a path that could ultimately bite them. The real key of buying Nintendo consoles has always been the Nintendo exclusives. And in recent years, those just have not been there. I talked about it in my March game video. Outside of the mainline titles, Zelda and Mario, it seems like Nintendo is kind of phoning it in. Their games really feel underdeveloped, like they're missing key features, like they needed more dev time. And they're not coming out with any frequency. We haven't even heard anything about a new Mario game. Sure, you could say it's because they're working on this Donkey Kong game, but that makes me nervous when it's been how many years? So how much longer then until we get a 3D Mario? Tears of the Kingdom just came out. How long until we get another Zelda game? The games are what sell the Nintendo console, at least for me, and it's only the first-party games that really do that. Maybe they've got a lot more games that they will announce in that June timeframe. This is what happened with the Switch 1. I wasn't too excited about that. Came out in March. June rolled around. They had their E3 Direct. They announced one game a month for the rest of the year, and then I was on board. So I'm hoping something similar happens with the Switch 2, because otherwise this is not something that I'm running out to buy. But what do you think? Are you excited for the Nintendo Switch 2, assuming you can even pre-order one? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think this is a good strategy? Are you okay with the smaller number of first-party games announced for the system? It's an interesting discussion, I think. I think a lot of people are focusing too much on the price and not enough on the software. I think that's what's actually going to make or break this console. If you liked the video, hit the like button, consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you all with the next video.